From a day to a year, the war gets economical. On the 27th, Secretary of State William H. Seward releases his apology, and it's a mess. There's contradictions galore, mad ramblings, and more than a hint of anger. But Lord Lyons, the UK's representative in the US, looks favorably upon it, and sends it back to the UK with his blessing. But he remains in the United States in case there are further orders from London. On the 28th, a battle in Sacramento, Kentucky. It will be between 500 Union cavalry under Major Murray against anywhere from 200 to 300 Confederate cavalry under Colonel Nathan Bedford Forrest. Forrest actually learns that the Union are camping at Sacramento, and he has to quickly come up with a plan or lose his prey. Here it is. He will have his cavalry's main body engage with the Union, dismounted, trying to hold them, while he will have two mounted groups come in as pincers and encircle the enemy. The Union are resting at Sacramento, as I said earlier. They soon see some men come out of the forest. Are they reinforcements or the enemy? Colonel Forrest himself answers the Union by taking out his revolver and firing the first shot. While the two main bodies engage, Forrest himself goes to one of the flanks, and when he arrives, he tells the bugler to blow the charge, ism. The two pincers come crashing in. The fighting is fierce. Forrest's horse himself is shot out from under Forrest. Despite being outnumbered, the Confederates win the day. And they do it quite well. They take 2 men dead and 3 wounded, and inflict 10 men dead and 13 captured onto the Union, or according to Forrest, 100 dead and 35 captured. Forrest's superiors are quite pleased with his first performance in battle, and his name soon starts getting talked about for a promotion. On the 29th, the US public hears of Seward's apology, and all have a giant sigh of relief, except for Captain Wilkes, the captain of the USS San Jacinto, who is not happy, as a craven yielding and abandonment of all the good done by their capture. 2 days later, John Siddle, the CSA's representative to France, and James Mason, the CSA's representative to the UK, leave Union prisons to the United Kingdom. Also on the 31st, an anxious President Lincoln sends word to Major General Henry Halleck and Brigadier General Don Carlos Buell. To Halleck he writes, General McClellan is sick. Are General Buell and yourself in concert? When he moves on Bowling Green, what hinders it being reinforced from Columbus? A simultaneous movement by you on Columbus might prevent it. To Buell he sends basically the exact same thing, and surprisingly, he hears back from both. From Buell, there is no arrangement between General Halleck and myself. From Halleck, I have never received a word from General Buell. I'm not ready to cooperate with him. Hope to do so in a few weeks. And Halleck also tells Lincoln, too much haste will ruin everything. It seems like President Lincoln can't get any of his generals to attack. Back to 1861, on the 30th, the U.S. stops gold payments. The greenbacks that the United States government has been printing rely on the idea that if you show up to the right place, you can turn those pieces of paper into gold, but not anymore. This is risky. It does allow the U.S. to print more money, and with that, they can better fund the war. But it also risks inflation, and risky investments don't usually get foreign investors that could be helpful for expanding the U.S. infrastructure during the turbulent times. Just as the Confederate representatives to England and France are leaving, the entire U.S. public has to deal with taxes. Earlier in 1861, the first Revenue Act was passed, creating income taxes, the first of their kind in America. Now, it's pretty simple. Those who are in the top 3% are taxed a flat 3% rate. It's that simple. But there is a problem: enforcement. The US government is kind of preoccupied with the Confederacy, so they're relying on the states to help enforce this policy. But state governments are kind of run by those who this tax affects, and they don't want to tax themselves or their buddies. So, The US government has created the first tax of its kind without any way to get the money. On the first, let's go to Virginia. Major General Stonewall Jackson has been a hero of the Confederacy for the Battle of Bull Run. But since that battle, he has been mostly just raiding and unsuccessfully attacking US infrastructure. He wants an offensive. President Jefferson Davis recalls, on the 20th of November, 1861, he wrote to the War Department proposing an expedition to Romney in Western Virginia. It was decided to adopt his proposition, endorsed by the commander of the department, and to ensure success, though not recommended in the endorsement, his old brigade, then the Confederate Army of the Potomac, was selected as part of the command with which he was to make the campaign. Jackson is asking for 15,000 men to attack the Union territory controlled by 5th Corps under Major General Nathaniel Banks and some men under Rear General Rosecrans. He gets to go ahead in December, but has to wait till Christmas until Rear General Loring's brigade can catch up. And there he has it, 11,000 men. For all of you non-mathematicians out there, 11,000 is 4,000 less than 15,000. And the 11,000 aren't even fully supplied by the Confederate government. Included are recruitments of Virginia cavalrymen done by Stonewall Jackson without permission. Despite not having the full 15,000, Major General Jackson leaves Winchester, Virginia with 9,000 men on the night of the 1st. 9,000, which is not 15,000 or even 11,000. Yes, Winchester is a valuable target for any would-be Union commander. So in order to ensure its defense, Jackson has to leave behind even more men to make sure his supply lines are well defended. The night of the 1st is terrible, a horrendous storm that covers everything in snow. To let a Confederate general put it, the road was almost an uninterrupted sheet of ice, rendering it almost impossible for man or beast to travel, while by moonlight the beards of the men, matted with ice, glistened like crystals. It appears that Major General Stonewall is on his way to Bath, Virginia, or Bath, West Virginia, deciding on if you recognize the state or not. Then there is Sickles' news. Sickles is worried about a congressional confirmation for his commission, so he has been taking a census of his soldiers in anticipation for the event. He has pretty good support, but he needs to drill it in more. He needs the help of his men to get his commission. A lot of those in Congress are worried about mutinies or just downright treason amongst the ranks, so shoring up their support would be very useful for the general. That's where the week ends, with the end of the affair, unless Parliament wants to make it bigger than it actually is, and the start of a Confederate campaign, but mostly the continuation of the U.S. financial dispute. The U.S. economy recently hasn't been doing that well. There was a minor recession in 1860 to 1861, in anticipation with the 1860 election and states seceding. That has mostly died down by now. The main major problem is the Panic of 1857. In 1857, the US economy was even more reliant on international trade, and it just dried up. This caused a huge panic, banks closed down, investments ceased, and expansion stopped. That's why Lincoln has been so dead set on getting the economy right, and he has picked a pretty good man to do it, Secretary of the Treasury Salmon Chase. Chase has two major financial plans, a national bank and a national currency. And these are pretty heavy reforms, probably the biggest since Alexander Hamilton created the entire US economic system. But it isn't without its detractors. Finance can split the country between agriculture and industry, between those in the East who require more heavily with international trade with other countries, and the West, which requires more trade with the East, which will then sell them to international markets. Such things could break the Union up further, so Chase has to be very careful, which is why the tax is only went for the top 3%. What Chase needs to do now is enforce the rules that already exist, prove that the US is stable enough for foreign investment and rich enough to continue a war. Hello, this is the entire Civil War week by week team here. I just want to say 1861 is over. Happy holidays. Hope you have a good year. And I know it might sound cheesy, but thank you for all the support you've given. if it wasn't for people who watch my videos, I don't really think I would have continued after episode 1 of this series. But here I am, in my basement, talking to you through a camera about a conflict that happened over 100 years ago. It's been quite a happy experience doing so. Thank you for all the support and, well, time and attention you've given my project here. It has meant a lot. I hope to see you next year.